Good morning. This is Brandon Ramey with Veteran Home Services, and very proud to have our second episode of Think Tank. And I'm interviewing my father here, Jim Ramey, retired Chief Petty Officer, served proudly 23 years for the United States Navy. And it's truly an honor and a privilege to have this time with you, Dad. Thank you for being on here and what our goal is here today. So thank you, Dad.
Thanks, buddy, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, very excited here to have this opportunity, not only to cherish the time that we get together and to be able to ask you some personal as well as professional questions to help out active military, retired military, those who serve this great country, not only to help them out with the facts and making sure that they're aware of what's available to them for all of their sacrifice and what they've done to protect our freedoms, but also for our industry. There's only so many people that you and I and Mom and our family can help out. We live in Ventura County. I know you're sharing with me some of the stats, and if you don't mind sharing that through this interview today, the type of impact it has not only on our local community, but also just kind of dispelling some of the myths that are out there, some of just the misinformation with working with military, that we hope to change and alleviate that, to share the facts, to share not only the personal experience, but you've taught first-time homebuyer workshops for over 20 years on our local base here at Port Hueneme, Point Magoo, I believe, even there where you retired out of. And you've helped educate and impact so many different families, and to have this opportunity today in an uncertain time like what we currently are living in, I think it's truly an honor and a privilege to do this. So thank you, Dad, and very excited to get into this.
Good. Well, hey, thanks again. This venue, I think, it can be very beneficial to not only the veterans and the active duty watches, but maybe even equally, if not more importantly, the industry as a whole. And I say that because I've gone through periods when a lot of agents were intimidated by the thought of a VA loan. I don't know if it's that much as nowadays as it used to be, but there was a period when I could not get a VA loan accepted. Part of it was inventory, thin inventory, and the agents had multiple offers. We weren't the best offer on the table probably at the time, at least in their eyes. They had a lot of inhibition about what the VA appraisal was all about, kind of government bureaucratic process that could tie up a transaction. So we weren't very alluring in terms of on the receiving side. So that's all changed. And now the VA loan is one of the best loans out there for a couple of reasons. We'll go into some of that about the strength of the applicants. The fact their jobs are guaranteed for the most part. The fact they get paid extra money to buy these homes out in town. The strength of their offer, they got a certificate of eligibility, which will actually guarantee the initial lack of a down payment and not have to have any PMI, which makes the buyer even more likely to complete the transaction. I've had other clients in the past, and once they saw what PMI was, because no one tends to talk about that. And that I've had that stop deals on conventional products. So kind of getting ahead of myself, the biggest thing is awareness. So not only do we got to teach the applicants, but we really need to teach the industry the benefits and the missed opportunity that a lot of them are doing by not servicing these VA clients.
Right.
I'd be happy to help any agent out there to deal with this because it benefits us all as a community to get these homes to the best buyers, and sometimes the best buyers aren't being considered because they're veteran. And it's not to distinguish a discrimination as much as it is the fear of what a government product looks like on paper when you have multiple offers. So there's a lot of strength there, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, that's great. And so you hit on some very important points. The hesitation of a seller or even a listing agent in looking at a military buyer because they could have concern. Some of the things I've heard is their appraisal can come in lower because the appraiser is going to be stricter for military than they would for another loan. Can you talk a little bit about the VA appraisal just process so that those that maybe don't have the experience, or it's been quite some time since the last time they picked a VA buyer. Can we talk about just some recent transactions that you've had with that?
I've got two as recent as they're closing today.
Okay.
It's March 31st. We had two VA products fund yesterday. One I had the listing, and the other one I had the buyer. Listing on Euclid, the buyer on Sherborne. Both vets. So I had both sides of the equation, and both appraisals came in on time at value. Didn't have any habitability issues, and that's the unknown fear that a lot of agents aren't even aware of what they're afraid of.
Right.
What that means is the appraisal issue, it's not so much the value with VA in terms of the concerns. It's, is it going to get snagged up in, like I said, a bureaucratic snafu, which usually revolves around, is the house habitable? So when the VA appraiser comes out, there's no difference between them and a standard conventional appraiser. What they're looking for, though, is the VA has guidelines that says it does have to have a stove, right? It doesn't have to have an operating furnace. The water heater has to be intact. Smoke detector's got to be in place. All the same standard things that a conventional appraiser is going to do anyways. So the fear factor of, if you're a listing agent and you have a VA offer on the table, try to minimize that. And this is where I think a company like ours comes in handy. Don't ever hesitate. If you want to call me and pick my brain on a possible buyer you're considering, please do, because it makes us a better community. First of all, I think it's a good practice that we share this type of information. And secondly, we want the best buyers for our sellers. We want the strongest buyer, which may not be, as the experienced agent sees this, knows it's not always the highest offer. Sometimes the highest offer is masking other concerns. And that's why they do that. They'll go a little over because they know they've got an issue deep down. So your VA applicant, who is guaranteed, so to speak, with this benefit, has a certificate of eligibility. And what that does, that precludes him from having to, him or her, having to come in with a 10, 20% down, whatever. And it guarantees the investor that if for whatever reason this thing were to default, the investor is going to get what would have been a down payment. They're going to get back to the government. So they're protected. So as long as the investor is protected, then really your seller is protected, because the seller is going to have a product that's going to close with confidence. A lot of the vets don't have, a significant amount of money to work with. Some do, many don't. We're on a very strict budget in terms of our pay. But keep in mind, if you will, they get paid an extra stipend called BAH, which is Basic Allowance for Housing. Ventura County, it can be over $3,000. An E5, E6 is over $2,000 already. So this is on top of their base pay and their allowances. So it's an additional stipend that helps them make this mortgage payment.
So guaranteed.
And there's housing shortage. Excuse me.
Sorry about that. Guaranteed monthly money that's coming in outside of what their regular pay is, which you can find online and verify. So very easy to qualify an active military buyer. But they get additional money just strictly towards housing allowance. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They actually have a stipend for food, basic allowance, and subsistence, and they have the extra allowance for the housing. So the government realized they don't pay them a ton of money, so they offset that by this extra benefit, and it takes the pressure off the housing, because there's a housing shortage on a lot of these bases. So just keeping in mind, in this area currently as we speak, there's roughly 35,000 veterans in Ventura County. We're losing about 1,000 a year in the county that are moving out of state for the affordability factor. At the same time, there's a projected 50,000 plus or minus, this is all off the CalVet website, these stats. There's about 50,000 roughly in the state of California that separate every year, military folks. A lot of them separate and stay here, so they're going to buy. They've gotten jobs here. They've met their spouses here. Their kids are entrenched in the schools here. I'm from outside of Detroit. Where would I rather be, Detroit or Ventura County, right? The answer is pretty obvious. I'm sitting right here. Mm-hmm. So a lot of folks do that. So even though we're losing that 1,000 a year, roughly on average, we're gaining, a substantial amount that are coming to the area and that are staying. So there's a great opportunity here to build a VA kind of a niche, if you will, for your marketing if you're another agent. So it's I think it's good practice. We share this information with agents who want to consider it. You may have missed that in the past. You don't have to be a veteran to help take care of an active duty member or a veteran. It doesn't hurt, but that's where the MRP came along. And congratulations on you earning yours recently.
Thank you.
That's a military relocation professional. It's not a terribly difficult course. You can do it over while we're on this kind of home sequester, for lack of a better term. It's a great time to knock out that certification. And I tell you, when you have an active duty member and you give them your card and you got MRP on it, you've already given them a sense of reassurance that you kind of get where they're coming from. That's a great credential to add to your repertoire, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the MRP. So MRP, I just completed it. Takes 6 hours to complete. Counts towards your continuing education. So your 45 hours that are required are for those that are studying for their brokers. They get to pick electives. This satisfies that requirement as well. So there's 6 hours it takes to complete it. There's a few tests that you take. I want to say there's 3 modules and then a test at the end of that, multiple choice. But it's not overly complicated, but there's a lot of great information. And I grew up feeling that I had a pretty good understanding of the military lifestyle. Those that are impacted, as we talk about military, it's not just the parent that's serving, but also the kids that are involved, the kids that are moving every 2 to 3 years, which does create an opportunity for those working in the real estate industry. Many, especially in the Navy, are given orders, PCSing. They PCS every 2 to 3 years and are given orders that they have to move. So if they purchased here, there's a great chance that 3 years from now, they're going to have to sell that property. And if you've properly served them and you've given them some of the tips that we're going to jump into here shortly, of what it is, what's important to know when representing somebody who's in the military, especially a retired military, when we're going to talk in regards to the funding fee, it's a huge opportunity to then represent them 2 to 3 years later if they get PCSed across the country, as well as knowing the challenges and the stresses of what they're going through as they come to try to relocate to our area. Usually they have a short window of time that they need to see a massive amount of properties, learn a completely new area, jumping from a very low price point typically of where they're coming from to a very high price point here that's over $500,000 in many situations for entry level. So you can imagine the amount of pressure that is on the military member as they make this move, and then the family dynamics, the kids that are in high school that have created their identities, their friends, they're leaving all that and they're moving to a completely unknown area. I remember we heard as we came from Andrews Air Force Base, you don't want to go to that school. That's a gang infested school there. And, we could have easily tried to do private school or another option, but we just came from Thurgood Marshall Middle School and Oxon Hill High School, walking through metal detectors. So I was up for the challenge, to say the least. But after I went to the school, saw that there were a couple gangs. They messed with each other, but they didn't mess with anybody else. And it was an awesome experience where I actually met my wife and have this beautiful family today because of not following the misinformation that's out there. So that's some of what I wanted to touch on. And anything you'd like to add to that, Deb?
No, I think that's a valid concern. If anybody who's watching this has been subjected to a move, you know what that involves. A lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of planning, coordination, communicating with all the people involved, movers, packers, utilities, mailmen, all that kind of stuff. We'll throw in the factor of a cross-country move, from East Coast to West Coast, throwing a move from Hawaii or Okinawa, Japan. You can imagine some of the intangibles involved with that. So these are the kind of things to be empathetic and hopefully supportive of when you deal with these clients, understanding why they may come in a little bit tired, a little bit, I wouldn't say short fused, but they're kind of pre-wired. You also have a PTSD issue that you may be subjected to. Now, I can take that whole conversation a couple different directions, and I don't see, and I deal with a lot of veterans, a lot of active duty. I don't see it on display as much, thank God, as what could be. One of my capacities, I didn't go into much of my background, But when we closed down our first company, Paradise Estates, in 2008, because of my education and my background, I went to the base and I was the financial educator for both Port Hueneme and Point Mugu. And what that entailed was I was the gentleman who was tasked with trying to save a lot of careers because they were based on security clearances. And the security clearances were in jeopardy at that time because of short sales and foreclosures that was, uh, pandemic to that time and the housing needs. And again, with the military folks, if they couldn't make these bills, and again, if you've been doing this for a while and you know what the interest on the loan was all about, or these adjustable rate mortgages, a lot of people had to basically strategically default on their loans. And for the civilian sector, it's bad enough having your credit hit. The military sector, it's credit plus security clearance. Well, keep in mind, the security clearance will cost them their job, which means they'll throw them out of the service. So we had a whole different set of pressures. And in my capacity for about 6 years, while I kept my broker's license, did a little bit of consultancy unofficially on the side, helping people out, I got a good feel for some of their anxiety, some of their concerns. And the reason I decided to get back into this, and instead of looking at, reviving Paradise Estates, I definitely grew an entire new affinity for the military folks. And that's why, the purpose behind Veteran Home Services was spawned because of some of these concerns in these areas that we need to help out our sailors and soldiers and airmen. There's a definite product there for everybody. Again, you don't have to be a veteran like myself. I think what would behoove you and the clients is to try and understand what they're going through, okay, as much as you can, i.e. the MRP. I also did another certification a couple years ago, FTBS, First Time Buyers Specialist. It's another great certification to get if you want to work with buyers and first timers. And what I appreciated about it was the demographic challenges in terms of age discrimination. And, the boomers are going and the millennials and Zs and everybody else are coming along. I'm old school. I know enough to know what I don't know. And that first-time buyer certification specialist, so to speak, kind of enlightened me on some of the challenges that the younger generation are going through. So it was a nice combination of putting my military background with this new certification. So I'd highly recommend, while folks are staying home for their continuing education, consider an MRP or a FTBS. Those are just things that'll take you in a whole another direction when we're ready to get back to work, which we'll talk about in a second.
That's awesome. And I touched on a lot of great points there. And, I want to talk a little bit more. You mentioned, kind of what spawned Veteran Home Services. What would you say is the mission of Veteran Home Services?
Great question. I've been thinking about, because we have a mission statement, but basically it's what I hope everyone that I'm blessed to work with in my company, or anyone who's outside the company, has any questions about it. But really what we want to do is provide the knowledge and resource to make our clients successful. Pretty simple. Knowledge, resources, make them successful. The challenge we have as an industry is information. Information's a great thing. But if you've been doing this for a while, one of your things you're dealing with and contend with are your clients know more than you do. At least that's what they think, right? How many times have you gone into a situation with a buyer or seller and they're telling you about how this is going to proceed? Or they're telling you what the market's going to do? Or they're telling you the value of their house because they went to Zillow and got a Zestimate, and you know for a fact it's not even close. They're telling you this stuff. So that information, that's your 800-pound gorilla in the room. We have to deal with it, and the best way to deal with it is to be at the forefront of that. Meaning we learn as much as we can about ourselves, about our industry, our colleagues, our clients, and the market. So here's the issue now: pandemic, coronavirus, everything's on lockdown. What do we do? How do we keep our business going? How do we prepare our pipeline for the event when, not if, when this thing is over? Nobody knows. Nobody knows how long. Nobody knows the true impact. Nobody knows the final damage this is going to do. I think it's safe to say we are going to be, it's almost like BC and AD, but we're going to have before pandemic and after pandemic. And our culture is probably going to shift. It's already shifted in front of our eyes. So us as professionals who are much needed, often scorned because of commissions, and we see articles in the paper where an agent went bad and did some improper things. We see that stuff, and we're the recipients of that wrath that'll come out there because people, I don't want to pay this kind of commission. What do you do for that money? The average client doesn't know what they don't know. So this is where the information is vital for you as a humble servant to them, and that's what we are. We're well paid when we are compensated. We're well rewarded in the gift of helping somebody put a roof over their babies' heads. We are blessed in the sense we get to put people in their next chapter in their lives. All that stuff is all warm and fuzzy. But the challenge is, how do we balance all of those final eventual outcomes with the information flow that gets subjected to us on a daily basis? And it's not real on-time accurate information, but they don't know that. They think they know exactly how you should proceed. But yet they're going to end up paying you for your experience. They're going to con you for experience, but their egos get involved because they can read a Zillow chart. They can go to Redfin, or they can hook up with a Rex agent who will convince them of X or Purple Bricks or all these other ones that are kind of coming and going because we know they don't serve.
Right.
So our challenge is taking that information and find a way that actually protects them from themselves at times. But we've got to share that amongst each other. That's why I'm glad you asked me to do this. I'll help any agent out there that, wants to open a door of, some communication.
Well, you just hit it. It's communication. Communication's everything. Becoming an expert in our field is also becoming an expert communicator, asking the right questions, leading through communication, and always doing what's best for our clients. And that's one thing that I keep saying I'm proud. I'm very proud of this interview. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of being your son. I'm proud that you brought me into this industry. And the things that you showed me and taught me from day one was you never, ever, ever, ever put money before anything. It's always about what is the client's best interest. And I saw that firsthand. I saw it in firsthand. There were certain transactions that it would have helped out quite a bit as a new starting company, and you handed it right back to that particular agent because you knew they weren't the right fit for our company. And you stood by your integrity and your values. It's not just speaking a big game about integrity being the most important things. It's the actions, it's the deeds, it's what's actually done. And firsthand, starting in the business, that's how I was built into the business, to see the difference. Everything else comes. The success, the closed transactions, the helping, handing the keys, all the positive things that have been a part of our lives through real estate as an industry. And this is also for those that are thinking about considering real estate. The many great relationships and the people that we've impacted, there's nothing on a more personal level that we have the honor and the privilege of helping. But you also bring up the great points that there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of negative feelings, and some of it is earned, some of it is valid. There's always going to be a few bad apples, but there's also a lot of great people, great leaders in this community that we've had the privilege of working with, that we know are the right types of agents. And that's who we're interested in helping out and continuing to help their success and seeing their success and knowing that we can be a part of that as a resource, as a friend, as a colleague in the business. And I think now more than ever, as disconnected as we may feel, we need to get more connected. We need to really leverage these relationships in the sense of working together so that we can beat this, so that we can keep this real estate market and economy going, because it is critical for the success of this country. So it's different ways of serving, and it's pretty awesome to do that. So I wanted to touch on some of those things because I know how important it is to me, and whether I've thanked you enough for it. I know I've said it at least once or twice, probably too many times, but I want you to know how much I appreciate you, your leadership. Trying not to get emotional. Looking up to you as a little boy, And all right, you can take it from here.
I'm going to take over so you can, you can get past, the emotional part of this. I appreciate that more than you'll ever know. Your mom and I still get to speak with a lot of agents out and about through different events, caravans, showings, and all this stuff. And the single best thing we hear is the impact you've made on so many agents. So we are very thankful. We're very blessed to have you follow this. Now we got your brothers and sister-in-laws and your wife and more family members doing this. So that's always a blessing. And the greatest thing a parent can hear is when people appreciate and respect their children. That goes leaps and bounds beyond anything about looks or intelligence, all that kind of stuff. It's about behavior and compassion. And we're very proud that you've instilled that in your family, and then hopefully been able to get to your client some of these same traits through your performances that they can understand and appreciate. I appreciate that more than you'll ever know, and I'm so thankful that that you're on this journey with us, and that the end result's going to be a lot of very satisfied people with new chapters in their lives that we play a vital role in. For the folks out there who might be seeing this, and obviously there's a lot of concern right now, there's a lot of fear, all rational. To the most point, some we've gotten irrational where we're taking things to an extreme, and that's very, in my opinion, again, I'm no shrink by any stretch, but I think that's very expected that these fears can kind of encompass us in our daily performance and our thoughts, because we're worried. We're worried about our families. We're worried about our futures, our careers. And one thing I have seen, and I probably watch way too much data on this, but talk about projected rebounds. The housing industry will be one of the first components to rebound. Now, I say that with open mind and open heart and a lot of optimism, but I'm counting on the fact that professionals like we're hopefully aspiring to talk to see it for what it is, and it's an opportunity to go out there and help rebuild communities. It's an opportunity to go out there and help somebody get past one of the scariest chapters in the history of our country. Today, we just passed the death toll of 9/11. So more people now died in the country than what we lost in 9/11. Two terrible tragedies, and two that have impacted our psyche as a country, our sense of security. And what more secure can you have than a foundation of a home that you put your family in? So the fact that that's in jeopardy and our careers, these are very rational fears and anxieties. So what do? We can't stick our head in the sand. We can't dwell on it. In my opinion, we're aware of it. We find some value in our time, definitely with our family. I mean, there's moments now that we reshape the narrative to fit our control. I can't control what the media is saying and doing, or how the folks who are a whole lot smarter than me are fixing this, but I can kind of control what my family sees. I can kind of control how I present this to them, what kind of opportunity. With an agent who doesn't know what kind of business they're going to have when this is all wrapping up, I would offer one thing, and that's hope. And I would offer humility, that take a look at yourself, take a look at where you're at. Are you in the right spot? And if you are, you're a blessed person. Talk to your broker, talk to the office manager. What are some of their thoughts about coming out of this with a plan? What are some of their thoughts about how do we regroup and rebuild as a cohesive unit within an office, a cohesive office within a corporation, a cohesive corporation within an industry, that all kind of layers out. But what you really want to do is, if this is where I should be, how do I take my situation, which a lot of it is way over my head, and how do I go forward with any kind of an understanding of what to expect? And I think what you'll do is you'll slowly get a grip on the reality is you do have some control over your future. Maybe not as much as we want at this point, but we got to see how this thing comes together. We got to see consumer confidence, how quick they can restore that. We have to look at what is it going to present? Is it going to present a thick inventory where everybody's trying to sell their house and buyers aren't buying? Could be. If that happens, then what's our narrative? What do we do? How do we approach that? And I think the single best thing we can do right now is evaluate where we're at, because I can't control where I'm at. I love my brokerage. I love the people I work with. I got an awesome manager who's helping us, who's just as concerned and scared as I am at this time. And together, we're going to unite, come up with some kind of a plan to go forward. Or I don't feel like that broker has my best interest at heart. You know, have I just been a statistic in their data sheet? Have I just been bringing in money and using their services? I hope that's not the case, but that's something everybody has to answer, you know, and ask and answer themselves. Am I in the spot that I should be? And if not, that might be a good time to make a change. You know, is this food for thought? But there's things that we can do to proactively come out of this with a plan. And I would start with that. Reevaluate. Where am I? Where do I want to go, and how am I getting?
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. And, you know, I wanted, because I know we talked about some of the things that I know you shared with me in terms of serving military. I want to make sure we hit some of those points, some of those key things that maybe, you know, many of our colleagues aren't aware of. What are some of the first questions? So you have a gentleman in the military who had served in the military, walks into your office and says, Mr. Ramey, I hear great things about you. Hear that you've helped many of many of my brothers and sisters in terms of in their home ownership efforts, whether selling or buying. Where do I start? You know, and what questions would you have for me?
That's a great segue into this. You know, with someone who presents himself as a potential client or just a potential need for some information, whether you're using your services or not, I think, again, from my perspective, you have the same response, and that is you try to get a moment to find out where are they at, you know, meaning have they already started the initial process, have they talked to a lender? One challenge we see is a lot of people default to Navy Fed and USAA, good institutions, but they're not the best. And part of that is, and I say this very sincerely, is their intention, I think, is honorable. They're serving a lot of military folks or DOD components, civilian contractors that work on the base. Or sometimes it's extended family members. You can have a grandfather who's in World War II and you can get served at USAA. Okay? Good institutions, but they may not be the best for you at that point in time. And I would offer the caveat is, if you have a lender that you feel comfortable with, or if you're working with an agent that has one, at least do a comparison analysis. If USAA is giving me a quote of X, I kind of owe it to myself to compare X with Y. I can't just take X. Because how do I know if X is good? I have no reference. If I look at X and Y, now I know something's not right here. They both come out the exact same, then I know X is as best they can do and Y is probably right there with them. I have a lender I've never met. He's also a veteran. He pays for all appraisals for veterans. He has an investor that pays for non-allowables. We try to minimize as much as we can through the people that we affiliate with to take the pressure off of not only our clients, but also the selling side. Because by law, there's a couple things that the veteran cannot pay for. They cannot pay for a termite report. Not a big deal, $75, some are free. They cannot pay for certain non-allowables, what they're deemed. That's typically, and that varies from escrow to escrow and lender to lender. They're typically sub fees of escrow, sub fees in certain title searches they can't pay for. So what you want to know in advance, if you're going to write an offer, you're going to receive an offer. Let's say you're the listing agent. Before I accept this offer, I need to know, hey, doesn't that veteran have the right or the benefit of certain non-allowables not to be paid? The buyer's agent should be saying, yeah, you're exactly right. Well, my seller doesn't want to pay for those. These need to be negotiated out during that process. Who's going to cover these fees? These are things when you talk to someone who comes in, are they aware of the fact that there's certain things they can pay for, certain things they can't? Are they aware that if they have a Purple Heart, they're active military and they have a Purple Heart, they can waive their funding fee? That's at 2.3% of the purchase price. So if you have a $500,000 home, you're already looking at almost $6,000 right there, or $5,000. I get 2.3 would be at $4,600 that they don't have to pay. I have one in right now in escrow that has a $21,000 funding fee he never submitted for his disability. The Purple Heart's one thing. A lot of people don't have Purple Hearts, but they have disabilities. And if you're rated at 10% disabled, service connected, or higher, that funding fee is waived the rest of your life.
It's huge.
You'd be surprised at how many lenders aren't aware of that. I've had to let 3 different lenders go that weren't aware of that. And if I know more about this than they do, I don't need them.
Right.
I need lenders who know the product to take care of my clients. So if I had a new person come up, have they spoken with a lender? Have they spoken with the right lender? Would they consider a second evaluation on their pre-approval? And then you just get to know them. You know, what are their needs? At the end of the day, I focus on 2 major things in my home buying class. I used to teach this for Pacific Oaks Credit Union. I was subcontracted off the military in '98. I taught it for a couple of years. Ironically enough, I went back and worked at the same department. They used to subcontract me out. Once they found I still had my broker's license, they used me forever. I taught every home buying class for 6 years on both bases. It's been a blessing and it's been a privilege to get to know the folks who are buying homes. But what you're seeing are the reasons, not the reasons to buy, the reasons why not to buy. Big difference. We can show them reasons to buy all day long. You've got to be able to combat their rationale on why not to buy. Well, the market's going to do this. Well, the interest rates are that. Well, I don't know if I want to stay here. Well, I don't know if I can handle the payment. We get down to 2 primary things. What's the payment? Now, what's the sales price? And I'll do my little thing. Oh, it's Christmas time. Hey, here's your payment. Oh, kids need braces. Hey, you got to make that payment. Your wife's pregnant. Congratulations. Triplets. Oh, my goodness. Payment's still coming.
COVID-19.
I do this for a second, then I'll say that's about 15, 20 payments. How many payments you got to make? Oh, 360. Oh, okay. You want them to really absorb the payment hit, not the price. The price goes away. It's the payment. Okay. So that's the first thing. And the second most important thing is the functionality of the house, utility. Payment, and I have 4 kids. I can't buy a 2-bedroom house. The house has to fit. Work on those things as your core. Everything else revolves around that. You'll be fine. So I kind of went off a little bit on your question, but I think the best starting point is find out what they're at, what they're dealing with, their pre-approval, and just kind of let it unfold from there.
No, you hit a lot of great points. And I want to go back to a couple of those. Can you hear me okay? I can hear a little bit of feedback. Okay. So you touched on, well, let's just start with the funding fee. And we'll get into a little bit of that. And then the non-allowables, the one point I brought up that was new information to me going through the MRP training was that you cannot enforce a buyer-broker agreement with somebody who's serving in the military. That's a huge no-no, huge no. I'm not talking about the VA no-no that you shared before, but you cannot charge a commission. So to put it just in, regular layman's terms is if just customary, you'll see 2.5% being advertised for a commission. So it is common for a buyer-broker agreement, which is a contract with a buyer and that real estate agent to guarantee a minimum commission, whether 2.5%, 3%, whatever that commission is promised between that client and that agent. And typically it's the seller who's paying the commissions to the buyer's agent. So with military, active and retired, you cannot enforce a buyer-broker agreement with your client. You cannot ask them to cover any commission difference. They can't pay you a single fee as their agent and representing them. You get paid your commission from the seller, whatever's advertised on the MLS. If it's 1%, that's what you're getting. If you try to enforce a 2.5% contract, that is what we call in contracts class, avoidable contract. That is unenforceable because you cannot force or ask or try to put a military member under obligation to cover that difference. So that was huge to me that I had no idea that existed. So that was one of the non-allowables, is to pay any fee to your agent. So that was one biggie. The other, you mentioned about funding fee. And the reason why I want to emphasize funding fee, because this is so important. It's really the way for VA loans that the bank collects their money, right? You either get it up front, you get it through the interest, you get it through the mortgage insurance. Well, think about it. Little money down or no money down. The limits, and I know you were sharing with me before, there are no current limits now in terms of how high a VA buyer can go. So what I would like to finish with are reasons why You may want to do this MRP. You may want to learn a little bit more about the military. Reach out to us. Maybe we'll just do a one-on-one class with a certain group of agents. So if you're interested, just direct message me or shoot me your email if you want to keep it anonymous. My email is brandon@vhsre.com. That's Brandon at V as in Victor, veteran, H, veteran home services real estate.com. So vhsre.com. Feel free to shoot me an email so it stays anonymous, and we'd be more than happy to do a private session with you. But that funding fee is key, because as my dad talked about, 2.3% on the purchase, that's for your first purchase. Actually goes up on follow-up purchases. There's also certain rules in terms of when you can use your VA loan, right? Certain things have to happen. So just because you used it once doesn't mean that you're done for life, that you only get a one-time crack at it, but there are certain requirements of what have to happen. So I'd like for you to touch on some of that with the funding fee, and really to emphasize that important. You mentioned $4,600 on, as being a rough amount. I see a lot that are $7,000 to $10,000. You mentioned one as high as $18,000. So when you can save that, and their only requirement is minimum 10% disability, there's also steps to make sure you get your rating, because how many people do you speak to that don't have that rating? So when you can save that kind of cost, or how many people have we talked to that have purchased and had no idea they had 10% disability, yet they were charged that funding fee? So I know I asked like 3 or 4 different questions, but you can elaborate on that with the funding fee, really emphasizing that. And then also VA qualification, I think, is really important for everybody.
No, you've hit exceptional points there that I think need to be understood. So if you would look at the fact that, first of all, like you said, it will be raised up. So they just raised, it was 2.15% until January 1st, went to 2.3%. Now the second one, they did lower the high end. It was going close to 4, and I think they capped out at 3.6 or 3.5. So a lot of people have purchased their first home in another duty station. So if they purchase a lower priced home, they'll show up with partial benefit. So that's very important to understand. So they could have an active VA loan tied up and still do another one at the same time. But what you do then is have your lenders do some research, have them bring in their paperwork, see what the value is on the house they have, how much they actually utilize for their benefit. But the funding fee, imagine if they're on their second, third home, and a lot of veterans have done that. They've moved around the country. I had one. Well, I had one just in escrow. Will close in about 3 weeks. Had a $19,000 funding fee. I'm looking at it like, so I already knew that it wasn't my client. I had the other side. But when I saw some of the fees were breaking down, it's like I wish somebody could have talked to them. We had an offer on Edgemont, just got accepted with dual Navy buyers. So I was real happy. The guy called me up. I could tell he was a newer agent by the questions he asked. But you touched on something that was very important. He had a clause in there that we countered out. It was called a commission deficiency form. I'd never seen it before. Basically wanting his clients to pay the difference of our 2.5 that we were offering. Now, they're vets. And I have to have that fine line of who do I talk to get these guys taken care of? Do I talk to the agent, which I will, and I have, or at some point, do I have an impasse agent? Do I go straight to the client? Well, I can't really go to the client. Then you have agency, relationship issues. But I bring it up because there's clients out there who aren't being taken care of because the agents just don't know. We have great agents in this industry. We tend to hear about a bad apple now and then, or we hear things, but look at how many good people we work with. Down to earth, good people, different brokerages, thank God they're all over the place. Those are the ones I'm hoping to educate. I'm hoping to educate someone who may not, be as ethical as maybe I think, or maybe there's things going on I don't know. But it's all about the information, about things like these funding fees. It's about things like, what can they not pay? It's things like why your seller might really want to reconsider that offer that they put on the table that doesn't have a huge earnest check, but they come in with no debt. They come in with impeccable FICO scores. They come in with the fact that they're getting paid X money to make this payment. They can handle that payment. They just don't have a lot of cash to work with. So when you combine all these factors, fees, non-allowables, all that kind of stuff, you look at the heart of the transactions, the people involved. First and foremost, it's the clients. Secondly, and we can debate this all day long, it's the principals. Who are the who are the agents, sub-agents we're dealing with? Who am I actually representing? We know technically the listing office has kind of the control over the transaction. We always like to par it out kind of 50-50, but we've also known that comes back to personalities and who wants to share things and be open-minded versus being combative and demanding. If we offer information out there and people can understand it's sincere, it's valuable. I don't know all this stuff. I find out every day. I found out about the Purple Heart a couple of days ago. I knew about the 10%.
Right.
And then I'm researching the law that went into effect. I knew about the limit being removed. You know, you can buy $1 million plus house. And then I see this one little thing. Oh, no, if you're active duty, have a Purple Heart, fees also waived. Because that's vital. Because a lot of active duty can't apply for that 10% disability. So they're subject to that fee. But if they have a Purple Heart, and you'd be surprised at how many Purple Hearts are in this county from Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, excuse me, they can have that fee waived. So it kind of can make you a hero when you go to a client or even the other agent. You know, I got Joe Smith on the other side who I know has a vet. Hey, Joe, transaction's going well. I see you got a good loan. Everything's proceeding. By the way, do you know, does your guy have a Purple Heart? Well, why do you ask? Well, because if he does, he can have that funding fee waived. You're like, crickets, really? Yeah, have him check into it. Cool. You look like a hero to the agent looks like a hero to his client. And at the end of the day, that doesn't even matter. The client just saved a significant amount of money. Now everybody's happy.
Right.
That's what we need to promote. We need to promote a unity in this industry. Because sometimes we don't get that. We're divided because of the competitiveness of commissions and office, you know, politics and everything else. We got to be better than that. We have to be someone who I can give up a listener to. I can give up a buyer to. It's more important that somebody else might be able to receive that, further our industry, get good people buying and selling homes. That's how we recover from this. Not by me hoarding toilet paper in terms of clients. I can hoard all my clients that I want, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't do any good if the other people can't receive it. So I hope, and again, Brent, I know we got to wrap up. I appreciate your time here. There's so much more. We just touched the tip of a lot of this stuff. There's so much more that we can talk about, we can share, and I think these venues are vital. I hope you send us out, get some good feedback, share it with whoever you want to, have them call me. Again, I know enough to know that I don't know a lot, but I know where resources are. I know where the people to call. And I know I got people like you who are trying to spread this information that we're better off as an industry. We're better off. It's not about, hey, I got a secret. A secret doesn't do us any good.
In our final minutes, don't mean to cut you off, but I know we are trying to wrap this up, but I want to hit as many concrete points as we can. Talks about non-allowables. I was surprised to see about processing fees, because that's very common with many of the brokerages, an actual processing fee that the vet's not supposed to pay for. So, you know, those are
typical. A lot of them have been paying for them.
Right. To make sure that they're aware that they're not supposed to be paying for the processing fees. Other things that I know you've shared with me before was about CalVet. You know, a lot of people kind of sum that up together with VA, but there's a difference between the two. And then just in finishing thoughts, if you want to touch on some of that, but also, so how does someone go about getting their disability rating, right? So maybe not all the contact info, but we can send that out to anybody who's interested. But if you can kind of just give a quick summary of that, I think that'd be a great way to wrap this up.
Great questions. CalVet is a state-funded program. Really has nothing to do with the VA. They sell bonds to pay for the product. Right now, the rates are just as competitive as VA. When I was doing CalVet before 9/11, I couldn't get VA. Well, the VA loan, the interest rates were 7.75 for the first. You had to get a second, which is usually about 11-12%. CalVet had a product that went straight across the board, 6.65%. So I had to convince a lot of my clients, hey, forget the VA. Well, no, I got a benefit. No, you're not hearing me out. Go CalVet. As soon as I said CalVet, they opened up. They thought it was a veteran program. It's kind of a misnomer. It's a state program that uses VA guidelines, but they're funded in-house. They're direct lender with bonds that they sell bonds to fund this thing. They're out of Sacramento. Highly recommend go to calvet.gov website. We'll put some links on. I'll give you some links to add. Got what your other question was.
Well, I mean, getting even back with the CalVet. So a reason why somebody may consider CalVet, say they own another home that they own across the country in another state. yet they still want to purchase out here. Just kind of touching on that difference or the ability to do that.
No, it's fine. Now I knew what I was going to say. So I taught a home buying class at the base over here, maybe 5, 6 years ago. And I had a master chief who's an E9, who's very senior, very kind of stubborn old guy, good guy. His wife worked with me. That's how I knew them. And she knew that I kind of had an idea what I was talking about. So I'm doing the class, and he was stuck on Navy Fed and a VA loan. And I had to convince him. I said, okay, I get it. Do yourself a favor. Go down there and do at least one other approval, but check with the Texas vet program. I'm going VA, it's federal, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, so I talked to his wife. You got to figure out who to talk to sometimes in these scenarios, right? We know more times than not, the wife's going to make the final decision.
Absolutely.
So I told her what to do. She goes, got you covered. And in about 6 weeks, I get a nice card in the mail. Thank you. Said, hey, we went away from Navy Fed. We got a local Tex vet program. We saved $180, which down there was significant a month, $180 a month down there. So I didn't need to hear kind of, a little bit of crow eating from the master chief. The fact that the lady who was a friend of mine took my advice and said, open your options, look at some of these programs. Highly recommend you look at a CalVet program. Highly recommend you look at VA period, what they have. As an agent who might be dealing with these for the first time, don't let that intimidate you. You have your number, you have my number. If it means a veteran's going to get a fair shot at a house, I will give you any piece of information I can give you. Because at the end of the day, that's all I care about. If I can help you get your deal sealed, why not? Why wouldn't I? So these information links that we want to put up there, also on how to get your disability rating. We'll put a link there. You can go to va.gov and file it. What they'll have you do is they'll have you start an account called eBenefits. eBenefits will let you download a DD-214, and all vets will know what that is. That's just your final piece of paper when you come out of the service. They'll let you download your DD-214. You can download your certificate of eligibility, get all your medical records, and get all your personal files and everything. So first step is va.gov. Go there. It has all the home loan information, all the limits. Well, there's no limit anymore, but just all the pertinent information you're going to want to tap into.
That was great.
That kind of thing.
Oh, no, it does. And I guess the last thing, I know I keep saying last thing and we'll wrap it up. What you touched on was just being a resource. So if you're trying to get an offer accepted and you're speaking about the benefits of working with military right now, with all the uncertainty with jobs, right? And the fact that this is touching on 2 points. I've never worked for a company where I stuck an open house sign out that people literally followed the signs just to see what this is about with Veteran Home Services, because they have somebody who's serving. And I've also, because my level of awareness is obviously up right now, seeing how many homes that I've shown that have not only flags on the houses, but you see military uniforms and just, it's everywhere in Ventura County here. So there's many people who need help, regardless whether you've ever served in the military or not. There's a huge opportunity out there. And our job, half of it, or I would say half, I'd say 90% of it is our ability to communicate. So not only am I trying to sell the strength of my buyer, who is rock solid in these uncertain times in terms of qualifications, I'd actually go out there to say that I had 2 scenarios, and I'll just share this story real quick. I had 2 situations. One, military, minimal money down, even though they could put more money down. We had the appraiser go out there. So they get their offer accepted. We get it under asking price. We wrote 15 under, we got it 10 under. Great in terms of great opportunity. We were getting, I don't want to say our butts kicked, but we were missing out on opportunities with the crazy market before this whole stay-at-home order happened. So it created an opportunity for them with the perfect timing, stars aligning, and we believe God was looking out for us in this situation and created this opportunity for us. And so not only was the owner a vet and had served, he appreciated the fact that he knew that we had about one of the most secure buyers in this situation possible. Now, the question about appraisals that come up, or the concern with the VA appraisal, our appraiser goes out, sees the property, and let's be, I'm going to be brutally honest in this situation. Many of the model matches for this particular property were in the, let's just say, low 620 to 640 range. We were at 665. It was our price. One house sold just months ago at $700,000. That was similar square footage just up the street. So if with the previous misconception that a VA appraiser is just going to come in and hammer down. We got it at value, as is, same day. Appraiser went in at 10 a.m. in the morning. We had a report by 4 p.m. without a rush and got our full approval. No request on repairs or anything. This is a 1985 home, so it's an older home. It's had some updates, but things that obviously could have been called out by any type of appraiser. As you talked about, habitability is a requirement for conventional loans as well. Now let's flip it to the other side. On the other side, I have a conventional buyer, 300,000, 280 down, 155 loan amount. That appraisal comes in 20 under value. It almost blew the transaction up. And every sale after that has been above what our sales price was at. It was based on supply and demand. It was a very popular community that, again, this appraiser did not give it emphasis, so it was still hit or miss. So the only reason why I want to bring this up is to really dispel that idea that, hey, if you take a VA offer, a VA buyer, that you're going to create some unneeded challenges and it may hurt the value. You may not get as much money for the home. It's completely unsound information, especially right now in today's day and age. So I know I kind of stole some of that thunder from you, but I wanted to make sure I emphasize those points.
No, if I could, real quick,
Yes.
and I know we got to go. We've closed 2 today, and we got 3 in the next month. We had 5 total. 4 of them were vets. The one that's going to close the last week was a buyer we have is buying over in Thousand Oaks, who's not a vet. Young couple we've been working with for years. The 4 that appraised, everyone we looked at comps, we thought, okay, we're good to go here. May or may not come in at value. Everyone came in at value. We didn't have one issue. We didn't overpay. We didn't underpay. We paid what we thought was fair market price. We're competing. Some of them were multiple offers, and 2 of them, it got down to where there were veteran sellers. You know, they took our veteran buyers. They don't have to be a vet, you know, on either side. But if you have a seller that you're representing, you're the listing agent, and you see that come across you, all I would wrap this up with, I would offer is, please don't discount that particular buyer out of fear of a governmental loan, okay? Don't do that in the sense because you're actually diminishing your protection of your seller to a certain degree. Because like I said, you may get a different type of structured loan that might come in that just might not be as strong. Our clients right now, and I can't say everybody because everything's case by case, but the probabilities fall in line with these active duty people who have a guaranteed check. They are not being sequestered. They are not being cut back on their hours. They have a finite amount of money. You know exactly what you're working with. A lot of them are attention to detail oriented. My wife, who does all of our paperwork, loves working with them because she goes, I always get my paperwork on time. They're on time for inspections. They're just thorough because it's kind of grilled into us from day one of boot camp. Hey, that's one of my biggest pet peeves when I got out. I was working at Remax. I'd get out and no one's on time. I'm sitting there like, where the hell are these people at? So I'm 15 minutes early, and then I might get a call. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, we're late. They didn't have Starbucks in, but wherever I'm at, I know I'm not where you are. So I'm sitting like I had to regrow and learn how to be patient because a lot of my civilian counterparts weren't on time. So kind of end off on a little bit of a humorous note. But the point is, for you as a listing agent, just give them equal consideration. Not saying give them any more, but don't give them less out of fear of not understanding a government product, because it's a great loan. At this point in time, it's a great loan with solid buyers who can close the deal and save you a lot of headache. There's nothing worse than getting sued for, in terms of our careers, but there's nothing worse than that. Litigation, cancellation, cancel on escrows. You're knee deep into it. I just changed my mind. You're going to have less reactional people buying homes as a veteran because they're not geared towards an emotional, connection. They're geared towards logic and sequence and doing things that are kind of orderly. So that's what we want as agents. That's how we protect our sellers a little bit better. But hey, I know we got to go, bud. Thank you. I'll give you some links. I'll send them over to you. Anybody who's seeing this, I hope you're staying safe. I pray that your family's in good health. We're a strong nation, strong people. We're going to come out of this. The question is, how do we learn from this? What do we do to go forward? As far as an industry, how do we make our industry better and more solidified? There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. You're going to have a lot of agents who are scared, and they may get desperate. They may do all kinds of things. So we got to be patient and empathetic. And anything I can do to answer a question, you don't have to work for me to be hopefully understanding of your situation. But I would, if I'm an agent in another office, I would have a heart-to-heart with my office manager, my broker, somebody at some point in time. Hey, can you hold off on my E&O requirements for a while? Can you cover any fees that might be due? Whatever fees, I don't know what the fees are anymore out there. I think you'll get some good responses. And if you don't, then you got some tough decisions to make. Is that a company that's really got my best interest at heart? But I wish you all the best. Thank you, son. I love you. You're a great ambassador for this, and yeah, we're gonna do fine. Thank you for your time.
Now, that was awesome. We'll definitely end it on that note. And if you like what you heard today, and Dad, if you're open to it, love to do another interview with you down the road, and we can get a little bit more in certain scenarios and specifics. I haven't reached out to him yet, but Colt Curtis, who owns his moving company, who also retired military, former Marine. Right. Love to interview him. So haven't reached out to him yet, but I plan to set that up, and would love to have both of you on it to really just get into the mission and the passion of serving veterans, active military. And again, to be clear, we serve everybody. We are a patriotic company and very proud of this country. We're proud of small business. We're proud of just helping others, serving, the community, educating, empowering. We both have a passion. I know I got it from you, the gift of gab, but also the passion for helping others through training and coaching. And, there's a lot of people out there that need our help. So, this is about just growing, working together. So if you're interested in this, either subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to post this also on Facebook. Haven't done it on Instagram Live yet. I'm sure eventually we'll get to that, but we're going to do this every Wednesday at 10 a.m. as our kickoff time, 10 a.m. Pacific. And the more the merrier. This is about having the biggest impact possible. So appreciate your time, your energy here. Any other final thoughts you'd like to just, that if you didn't get a chance to share it?
No, I just wish everybody a safe day, safe tomorrow. Keep God in your heart, can't go wrong. And just love your family, hug them while you can. Talk to your elderlies, talk to your parents, grandparents. If they're still around, you're blessed. And we can't take any of this for granted anymore. We've seen what reality is like. We're living in a world that, authors and screenplay writers dream of, not reality. This is something out of a bad movie. So we're actually in the middle of it. So everybody just be safe, be smart. Watching people out there drag racing and doing donuts in the street with, 400 kids standing around them. We just got to be smart. So, bless you all. Thank you for your time.
That was awesome, Dad. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon. Love you, Dad.
Okay. Love you too, buddy. Take care. Bye-bye.